Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we'll take a look at some new entitled people content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
The first story is titled, Smug Karen Stole My TV and Claimed It Was Public Property. I was moving in. TLDR. I start moving into a new house and stuff is all over the lawn and curb as we are organizing things. I come outside to grab something when I see Karen loading my TV into her luxury SUV. I try to get her to stop, only for her to be racist towards me and tell me that things not in the house are public property. I get her license plate and use the moving van's footage to prove that she took it and get it back. At a neighbor's pool party, I notice she lost her diamond necklace in the pool and get my revenge. I throw it out instead of returning it because after all it wasn't in a house, so it was public property, and I could do anything I wanted with it. Revenge is sweet, and one day Karen will learn messing with me is a bad idea that won't end well. For a moment I really thought that I was going to get through my life without having to directly deal with a Karen neighbor, but since I have, I might as well share it with the world. Now what I didn't know at the time was this Karen actually only lived a block away from me, but since I was just moving in, I had no way to know that. I was helping unload the moving van, and while we were deciding where some things exactly would go, we used the front yard as a waiting area. The way the van was packed, some of the stuff that needed to go inside first ended up more towards the back. Because of this structure, boxes needed to be taken out and put down for a little while. We didn't mind though, and the only thing that really matters is that along with the boxes our TV was sitting out on the lawn. I came outside to grab a box and I saw this woman loading the TV into the back of her SUV. I ran before she could get into the driver's seat and speed away. I did not want to get robbed before I even moved into my house, and needed to buy another TV was not something I needed on my new home checklist. Me. What are you doing? That's my TV. Karen. No, it isn't. Unless it is inside your house, it is public property. Me. It was outside because we are just moving in. Half of the boxes are still sitting outside by the curb too. Karen. I found it on the public street and that makes it mine. Me. No, it doesn't. Taking it is literal theft. It is a crime taking something that doesn't belong to you. Again, it is sitting out here because I am moving things into my new home. That doesn't mean it is legal for you to just show up and start taking things that you want. They still belong to me. Karen. I don't know what backwards laws you have from wherever country you came from, but here if things are out on the street they are up for grabs. Now that last comment, I need to mention that I was born in the country, but because of the color of my skin she assumed that I was foreign. Between the stealing and the blatant racism, I knew right away that I was dealing with a Karen, and I wasn't going to win an argument with her out in the street, so instead as she drove away, I took a picture of her license plate so I could call the police and report the theft later on. In that moment though, I really needed to finish getting everything in the house because the clouds forming told me that it was going to rain, and I didn't want all my stuff wet. I just didn't know at the time the rain was both literal and metaphorical when it came to dealing with Karen. Calling the police and giving them the plate was enough for them to at least start an investigation into things. That was when I learned Karen lived only a block away from me and that she actually had plenty of money. I guess she was just stealing for fun because not only is the neighborhood fairly affluent, this woman has 2 luxury cars, a pool in the backyard, fancy jewelry. Basically, there was no way you could convince me that this woman didn't have a TV or needed to steal it to pawn it for like food money. It was just some cheap thrill for her, and that actually got me even angrier about the situation. I wanted to march right over there myself and give her a piece of my mind, but restrained myself, meaning my wife kept me calm until the police could do their thing and pay a visit to Karen. Of course, she told the cops that she didn't know what they were talking about and that she never took it. They couldn't get probable cause to search her house for it, so they told me that unless I had anything better than my testimony, they really couldn't do anything. Again, my wife had to stop me from just going there myself and yelling at her about stealing the TV. We were at an impasse where I thought I didn't have any proof, but I was actually wrong. See, the moving company we used needs to use cameras on all of their vans to prevent people suing them wrongfully for things breaking. After talking with them, they agreed to let me see the footage they had, which you can see Karen pulling up and stealing it. That was enough for the police to get a search warrant and found my TV somewhere in her house. I didn't want to press charges for theft or anything, I just wanted to finally be able to finish setting up my cable and have one less thing to do. Now you might think naturally the story would end here. Karen got caught, I got my TV back, etc. Well, that might have been the end of the story, but a few weeks later a wonderful opportunity for revenge came knocking and I can't finish this story without including it. Another neighbor was throwing a little block party that including a few blocks, so both me and Karen were on the invite list. I do want to mention that besides Karen everyone else was very nice welcoming me to the neighborhood, so she seemed to be the anomaly. Neighbor's backyard had a pool, so many of us at the party were taking advantage of it on the hot day and swimming. Karen looked a little weird because instead of pool party attire she was dressed up a little too fancy. She had a diamond necklace and seemed to have her nose permanently stuck in the air. I don't know if she didn't see me or was actively ignoring me, but thankfully we didn't speak. She did go swimming though, and after having a few free drinks and seeming to eat her fill of whatever free food she could find she wandered off back home. I guess when she can't steal, she is too busy taking advantage of other people's good nature. When I was swimming though I noticed something sparkling at the bottom of the pool. I went down to grab it and I realized that it was Karen's diamond necklace. Now I admit the adult thing to do would be give it back to her, even though she would probably accuse me of somehow stealing it right off of her neck. The more vengeful would tell me to keep it or sell it at a pawn shop to get some nice money. I didn't choose either of those though, and instead I put it into an empty chip bag I was eating along with some napkins and threw it right in the trash can. If she wanted to treat me like trash, then I was going to take that literally and make her lost stuff trash. Besides, according to her own logic, since it was in the bottom of a pool and not in the house, it was magically public property. The next story is titled, I Saved Someone's Life and the Family Hates Me. I knew a lady who was going through a divorce. I was her tech person when she had a home business, and I was invited to her 40th birthday party. She wanted a new TV plus sound system hooked up. Needed my car because the TV would fit in it. We went together to pick up the TV, and while out, she went to do a little shopping for food, etc. During that moment her ex saw us together. I am married and just helped this person. I hooked up her TV, the party happened, and I helped clean up at the end when her friends left. The ex heard from her friends that I stayed after the party ended. A few weeks later, she wanted a GPS setup for her car. It was a hot day and her house air conditioner stopped working. I went there and knocked on the door. She didn't answer. I heard the car running in the garage. Went back the door to look in the front window. The house is full of smoke. I opened the front door, which was not locked. Found her passed out on the couch. Picked her up and took her outside. She was breathing and coughing. I went back in, and she had the car running, window down, to make the air conditioner of the car cool the house down by the internal access door to the garage. Instead filling up the house with carbon monoxide, which almost killed her. Yes, I have seen more stupid things but not deadly. I turned off the car and opened up all the windows and doors. She was crying outside because she almost died, and if she did, people would think she deliberately killed herself. Instead, it was a mistake. If I had arrived a few minutes later, she would have been dead. I comforted her, and at that moment the ex drove past on one of his stalking runs. Later I saw him when he was picking up his kids from school. He called me a cheating prick, which was surprising because we got along before they broke up. He had already been spreading rumors to everyone that I was sleeping with her. Told his whole family, her family, eventually got to my family. I didn't do anything wrong, and when I told them all what really happened, nobody believed me. Everyone believes him that something was happening before they broke up. Then he was making up extra reasons to say she was with me. Oddly, my wife is the person who laughed it off. Because she doesn't believe I would ever cheat on her, especially with that woman. The next story is titled, Wa/City Claims 40% of Property. I just put an offer on a 0.19 acre property with a home. I received the title report which listed no easements. We moved forward, and we noticed that no neighbor has put up a fence. So, we were curious as to why and requested the recorded documents ourselves. What we found is that there is a 25 feet landscape easement on the back portion of our property. There is no definition for this in the CC&Rs, but when we search for this for our state, it is defined as a common area. The CC&Rs address common areas, as for the enjoyment of all residents, and no alterations may be made to the landscaping in that area, nor any fences, hedges, etc. What this effectively means is that 40% of our property is a common area that we can't touch. Also, it means that technically other owners in the neighborhood can utilize the space for their enjoyment as well. Where this becomes a bigger issue is that this landscaping easement is 25 from the back property line. We measured this, and it literally goes right up to the back of the house. That means somebody could walk up to your window, place a lawn chair, smoke a cigar and tell you to duck off because it is a common area. Will anyone do that? Unlikely, but as r/fuck OA is well aware, all it takes is one asshole who knows the rules and wants to piss you off, and there is nothing you can do about it. Luckily, the seller said in the property disclosures that there are no easements, so we can back out of this with no loss, but duck this. Update. So still crappy but not as bad as I thought. There is an easement, and it does go literally up to the back of the house. But it is not a common area, however it seems to be owned by the city, not the HOA. And they do not allow any modification of this area or structures. So, it seems that I can't landscape in it, it has to remain natural. So, there is still 40% of my property that I cannot use other than just looking out onto pine needles and brush. The last story is titled, Dispute over Easement Escalates into a Mess in My Yard. Warning, this is kind of a mess, and kinda long. My husband says I ramble, PSSHT. Background. We live in Wexford County, Michigan. Bought this home on approximately 5 acres in 2011, I think? Maybe 2012? As a foreclosure through Fannie Mae. I'm very sure we paid for title insurance but cannot find the original paperwork from the closing. Now the title company is out of business, and I can't find any contact info for where the paperwork would be now. On to my tale of woe. Last fall, a friend of ours called my husband and asked what he was bulldozing along the side of our property. My husband said, "What? We're not even home, we're camping." We were only a few miles away, so my husband rushed home and sure enough, there was a guy in a bulldozer running down the side of our property. Unfortunately, he had already finished his work on our land, getting our trees out of his way, and was proceeding to his own property work, which is a landlocked parcel behind ours. We were later told he inherited it for $1, but whatever. My husband called the sheriff's department, who came out and looked at our copy of the deed, that doesn't show an easement, but said it was a civil matter and we would have to take him to court. My husband went to the courthouse the next day and looked up our deed, to make sure there weren't any alterations, and the copy he received from them is exactly what we already had. No easement. He also gets a copy of the guy's deed, and it says there is indeed an easement to his land, but not through our property, it's off the side road, but since when does a property get to? My husband then proceeds to put up a temporary, snow, fence with our phone number on it to make contact with this guy when he came back. It's an empty lot, no house, not even a shed. We weren't blocking him from his house or kids or dog. Next thing we receive is a letter from this guy stating if we don't take down the fence, he's going to sue us for thousands of dollars in damages, and he includes a new copy of our deed which now shows an easement down the north side of our property. Then the police come, tell us to take down the fence, and take him to court if we don't like it. We take down the fence, and my husband calls a local lawyer who pretty much says if he gave you a deed that says there's an easement, there's an easement. Pound sand. Then comes the long, cold winter. No drama. But damn it was cold. This last spring, my husband was in the yard and sees this guy coming from the property out back and flags him down. Says you can use our driveway instead of driving through our front yard, just turn left at the tree line and then go on back. Which was fine all summer. We'd see tracks out back, or hear a truck go by, no big deal, we're ignoring him and pretending he doesn't exist. 2 weeks ago, that went out the window. We both work nights and get up for work one afternoon and lo and behold. About approximately 40 feet from our driveway, there's now a brand spanking new driveway through our ditch, with a super nice gravel path that goes about 50 feet down through our front yard. Instead of using our driveway like we offered, to get him to not destroy any more of our poor but proud yard, it's respectable. This douchebag has now had gravel spread over a good portion of my front yard, which has always been mowed and maintained. Foreseeing potential issues with this guy, I opted into the legal plan this year at work, yay. So, I call the legal line, and they give me a list of lawyers saying that everything but fees for filing and such are all covered and providing me with a list of somewhat local lawyers. I say somewhat because we're fairly rural, and I work approximately 60 miles from my house. The closest big city is approximately 45 minutes away. I think one of the firms listed is the one my husband called last fall, so I moved to the next, and give the one that took my call the lowdown. He looks at Google Maps so I can show him where and so on, and says he doesn't think there is an issue to dispute. The guy is utilizing the most feasible route to his property, completely disregarding me saying I found Michigan law as well as county law stating a person with easement rights may use said easement but cannot alter or improve the easement without owner permission. And finally says he's gonna have to talk to his partner who has more experience and just finished an easement dispute case to get back to me. This week, he calls me back and says he's declining the case because if the guy showed us something that says there's an easement, we can't do anything to question it, even if it appeared out of nowhere and we were never notified of anything until he showed this new deed with an apparent easement to the sheriff. That expecting the guy to not install his own driveway was fine, and asking him to either pay for putting the gravel in my yard or remove it back to lawn just isn't reasonable. He says to either let the guy be or find someone else. My question to him was what's next? He got away with bulldozing our trees and land to make it more accessible to him. Apparently that was fine. Now he's graveled my front yard. That's also fine. So, what's next that will also be reasonable and fine? Long story short, guy produces brand new deed to our land stating he has an easement through our property. Bulldozes out trees and levels, flat, land to his liking. Now, he's installed a new driveway in our yard, and has graveled a good bit of my lawn, not even all the way through. What are my next steps? Update. We now have copies of everything pertaining to our property going back almost 20 years, including the deed we received when we purchased the house. That does not show the easement, so we weren't wrong there. What is new, is there is an easement to the guy's property on the north side of ours. It's shown on the parcel description in 1994, but never again after that. It must have gotten lost somewhere in time. Which all goes back to the now defunct title company. The Secretary of State says they have zero records pertaining to any properties, title insurance or title insurance companies, so our next step is tracking down the part-time township clerk, to see if they have any records. We also found that our house was never attached to the property, so that is a whole other problem. Thank you for listening.